A listener writes, "We were visiting a friend on the coast of Maine near Brunswick in the fall of 2017. We were waiting for our friend to arrive after picking up his 16-year-old son and his friend at soccer practice. When they came into the house, the kids were shaken with fear and were white as ghosts. They kept saying to themselves, 'There's no way we just saw that.' But then the matter of the voicemail with a timestamp from 18th April 1988 came up. I spoke to the gentleman who sent me this voicemail, and he said those two boys were terrified when they came in. They were definitely white as ghosts." He goes on to write, "Rory and Max and one other friend were hanging out after soccer practice ended. They were up overlooking the soccer field near a train bridge that led to the woods by the old airbase. They were hanging out and goofing around until one of them spotted a tall, white creature near the track by the woods on the other side of the bridge. They stared at the being and were totally freaked out by the size and shape and color. It was 8 or 9 feet tall. It had long arms that went down to its knees. It was all white with no hair, and it had its hand up to its ear as if it were on a call. After a few seconds, one of the boys called out, 'Hey!' and the creature looked over and then glided into the woods, faster than any human could move. During all of this action, Rory's cell phone started to ring, but his attention was fixed on the creature. He ignored the call. When the creature was out of view, the boys booked it back to the field and tried to explain to themselves what they had just seen. That's when Rory saw that he had a voicemail from 1988. The attached sound file is a voicemail that came in as the creature had its hand to its head, mimicking a cell phone call.
If you're satisfied with the message, press 1. To listen to your
In the middle of the message, you hear a faint "hello." I'm working on trying to get Rory and the parents to come on the show. This is the voicemail that Rory got.
You may to continue recording where you left off, press 4. If you're satisfied with the message, press 1. To listen to your message, press 2. To erase and re-record, press 3. To continue recording where you left off. Send your message as is.
Are you still there? If you are satisfied with your message, press 1. So listen to your message, press 1. And
send your message as is.
Are you still there? If you are satisfied with your message, press 1. So listen to your message.
It looked like somebody was bent over and had their head in the window of the deer blind. It either heard me or smelt me, and he pulled his head out of the tent and stood straight up, and that shocked me. They don't make people that big.
The way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. I know what a bear looks like, and there is no way on this planet that what I saw were bears.
What are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Gia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
This is Greg Andrews from Orlando, Florida, and you're listening to Sasquatch Chronicles.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you tonight. We're going to be chatting with Thomas, and Thomas comes to us from Canada. He used to work at this fishing camp, and while working there, he found tracks and then later had an encounter. A very cool encounter, actually, with the eyes, especially. He describes the eyes being blue, and there's a lot of reports of them being blue. I would say yellow is probably the number one, kind of that yellow-orange color. It's probably the most common, and then red, but I have heard blue before. And the creature's behavior is pretty fascinating too as well. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Thomas to the show. Thomas, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Wes. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on, and I know you had a very strange encounter, and it kind of started with this job. If you would, just kind of tell us the general area where you're at, and kind of walk us into how all of this began with this encounter.
Yeah, sure. I live in Saskatchewan, and so in the northern part of the province is all forest, and there's really good fishing, so I got a job at a fishing camp up there. And it's about, I would say, about an hour west of actually the Saskatchewan-Manitoba border. I started there right after high school. It was my first year, and then I went back for the second season. Everything was going good. It was, really fun job, kind of my dream job. I got to go fishing and everything, and just kind of working outside the whole time. But we had a nature trail kind of off back behind the lodge, and that's, for people to go hiking and kind of exploring and stuff like that in the forest, and everything was marked out. And I decided on one of my days off that I was gonna go for a jog through there. So I kind of took off and I was headed out, and you go through a part where it's pretty thick forest, and you come out into kind of a burnt out swath. There was a forest fire up there probably about 3 years before I got there. And it got quite close to all the lodges and everything, but you go in through there and you can see for quite a ways because there's no brush. The trees are all dead. And I was going through, and as you run through kind of the burnt out part at the end, you're going back into the forest. You can kind of see the wall of trees, everything coming up. And coming up to that wall of trees, I got just about there and I heard a big knock, like a big branch break. And I froze because there's lots of bears out there. And so I thought maybe it was a bear stepping on, a burnt log or a rotten log and it just crushing it. And so I spun around and I stopped, and I couldn't see anything moving. It was pretty dead quiet after that big break. And so I decided I might as well leave and go back and kind of get out and maybe go fishing instead. And it was probably a couple days later, I was down at the dock working, and one of the campers who had been there last year came back, and he came and he found me, and he was chatting with me. And he said, "Oh, by the way, I was on the nature trail and I found these footprints." And then I kind of poked fun at him, saying, "Oh, you're, such a master tracker finding footprints on the nature trail." And he said, "No, they're Bigfoot footprints." And then that really caught my attention because I'd always believed in it, because it's just there's so much space, especially up here in Canada. There's so much space where people aren't, that it's hard for me to believe that there's not something out there that we haven't seen. So I asked him if he'd take me to go see the footprints, and I said I'll talk to some of the Indigenous elders there and see if they want to come with us. And so he said absolutely. So there's about 6 of us going. There's the 4 elders and us 2, and then the guy brought his dog. I don't know if it made him feel better about the bears or whatever, but this really big dog, really dumb but very, very protective of him. And so we get out, and he takes us to the place where he said he saw these footprints. And so he pointed the one that he found out to me. And I looked at it, and then I was kind of humming and hawing because it was in the dirt, really hard packed dirt. And it honestly looked like there was a rock that had been laying there that somebody kind of moved out of the way.